Thank you. Right, this is dedicated to all the good people, the real doctors, the decent, honourable doctors, those who uphold their Hippocratic oath to do no harm, and who are healers, as a doctor should be, of course, and to all the other real scientists, health professionals, and the MEPs of Brussels who facilitated the International COVID-3 Summit in the European Parliament in Brussels, first broadcast approximately 2 weeks ago. Thank you very much. That needs to be shared as widely as possible and to be seen by millions of people worldwide. And now, without further ado, I'll present my effort to perhaps bring some poetry from the 1300s and some of the brilliance therein of Geoffrey Chaucer, the first poet ever interned in Poets' Corner in Westminster Abbey, London. The Physician's Tale by Geoffrey Chaucer, with the wonderful translation here by Neville Coghill. It's a marvellous translation. He was from Oxford. He died in 1980. Yeah, Neville Coghill's translation in the Penguin Classics, which I don't own the copyright to, by the way, but I'm going to read it anyway. There we go. Lovely. Right. ISBN number O-14-044-022-4 94202. Oh, wait a minute, that might be slightly wrong. I might have messed it up slightly. Somehow, I don't know. There's some look in the front. Anyway, never mind that. I think there's enough evidence there for you to follow the trail. You know, enough information, sorry, there for you to follow the trail. If you should want to peruse the tales, all of them, the marvellous tales of Geoffrey Chaucer, born in approximately, they're not exactly certain, 1342, and dying, I'll tell you exactly what you want to know, and then I'll get on with the poetry. Goodness me, I couldn't find it. Never mind. Right, here we go. Page. Incredible incompetence yet again from the great Englishman, slightly eccentric person of yours. Quite a wonderful phenomenon, and a force of, well, I don't know, acerbic wit every now and again. I don't know, force of change and force of truth, force for whatever. I am a man who certainly is trying to stand up for some semblance of sanity in this totally insane world, we seem to be sliding further and further into complete and utter total insanity, inhumanity, and vicious, totalitarian, perpetual tyranny. The Physician's Tale from Geoffrey Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. Geoffrey Chaucer, of course, writing in the 1300s in England. Livy has handed down a tale to us about a knight surnamed Virginius. He was a man of honourable birth, rich, well befriended, and of sterling worth. This knight had a daughter by his wife. There were no other children in his life. Of an excelling loveliness was she, above all others that a man might see. Nature had shown a sovereign diligence in forming her to such an excellence, as if nature wished to say, "Look, I am nature, and this is how I form and paint a creature, when I so choose. When so I choose, who dares a counterfeit? No, not Pygmalion, though he forge and beat, colour and carve forever, I maintain that Zeuxis or Apelles would work in vain to colour or to carve, to forge or beat, if they presume to make a counterfeit. For he, that is the maker principal, appointed me as his vicar general." I'm going to turn the main beam on, the main light on, excuse me. Sorry about that. Right, that's better. See the book a bit better. Right, I was a bit batting in the dark. Yeah, like a blind bat. Right, where were we? I'm going to start at the beginning again because quite up to my usual stringent standards, and wonderful cup of tea, best beverage on the planet. Be with you just shortly. It's going to be good, don't worry, it's not too long this tale. And I better hurry up because I'm going live again in the live stream scheduled for 10:05, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Right. The Physician's Tale from Geoffrey Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, written in England in the 1300s. Livy has handed down a tale to us about a knight surnamed Virginius. He was a man of honourable birth, rich, well befriended, and of sterling worth. This knight had a daughter by his wife. There were no other children in his life. Of an excelling loveliness was she, above all others that a man might see. Nature had shown sovereign diligence in forming her to such an excellence, as if she wished to say, "Look, I am nature, and this is how I form and paint a creature, when so I choose. Who dares a counterfeit? No, not Pygmalion, though he forge and beat, colour and carve forever, I maintain that Zeuxis or Apelles would work in vain to colour or carve or forge or beat, if they presume to make a counterfeit. For he, that is the maker principal, appointed me his vicar general, to fashion creatures all that ever were, and paint them as I please. For in my care lies all that's under moon and wax or wane, I form them all. I do not work for gain. My Lord and I are leagued in close accord. I made her for the worship of my Lord. And so I do with all my other creatures, whatever be their colour or their features. This was, I think, what nature meant to say. The maiden was 14, on whose array nature had spent her care with such delight, for such as she can paint a lily white, redden a rose, and teach it to unfurl her petals. So she touched this noble girl ere she was born. Her limbs so lissom she had touched with colour where they ought to be. Phoebus, her massive tresses with a gleam, had dyed in burnish from his golden stream. And if her beauty was beyond compare, her virtue was 1,000 times more rare. There lacked no quality in her to move the praises sober wisdom would approve. Chaste of her body and her soul was she, and so she flowered in her virginity. With all humility and abstinence, in temperance and patient innocence, with modesty of bearing and of dress, and showed in speech a modesty no less, though I dare say as wise as Palais. She was simple in her words and womanly. She used no fancy terms in affectation of learning, but according to her station she spoke. In all and everything she said, she showed that she was good and gently bred. Shamefast she was in maiden shamefastness, and constant in her heart. She was express in conquering sloth to fill the busy hour. Over her mouth had never Bacchus power, for wine and youth swell Venus and desire, much as when oil is cast upon a fire. Indeed, her native goodness unconstrained so prompted her that she had often feigned some sickness to escape from company where there was likelihood of ribaldry. As well as there may be, junketings and dances are good occasion for lascivious glances. Such things as these may soon too easily make a child bold and ripe, as one can see. That's very dangerous and long has been, for all too soon she learns to play the queen and show how bold she is when she's a wife. And all you ladies that in middle life are put in charge of younger gentlefolk, pray do not think I speak as to provoke your anger. Think that your appointment springs from either one or other of two things. Either that you were chaste and did not fail to guard your honour, or that you were frail, and therefore, knowing well the ancient dance, you have forsaken your intemperance for ever. Teach them then for Jesus' sake, and never slacken. Virtue is at stake, just as a poacher who forsakes his crimes and leaves his trade in villainy betimes makes the best gamekeeper. He's just the man. Keep you your charges if you will, you can. Never belittle or connive at vice, lest you should pay damnation as the price. For those who do are traitors, never doubt it, and so give heed to what I say about it. Top of all treason, sovereign pestilence, is the betrayal done on innocence. Your fathers and your mothers, let me add, however many children you have had, yours is the duty of their supervision, as long as they are bound by your decision. Beware lest the example you present, or your neglect in giving chastisement, cause them to perish. Otherwise, I fear, if they should do so, you will pay it dear. Shepherds too soft, who let their duty sleep, encourage wolves to tear the lambs and sheep. One parable's enough, you understand. Let me return to what I had in hand. This girl, who is the theme of my address, was such as not to need a governess. The way she lived, if other girls would look, could teach them more of goodliness than a book. In all that should concern a virtuous maid, she was so prudent, bountiful, and staid, and common fame was eager to confess her matchless beauty and her kindliness. Lovers of virtue praised her and gave proof of her deserts, though envy stood aloof, envy that glowers at favour like a thief, and gloats to see another come to grief. A phrase that St. Augustine noted down. The girl one morning went into the town towards the temple with her mother too, as one may see a girl will often do. Now, at that time there was a judge in charge over the city and the land at large, and so it happened that he cast his eye upon this girl as she was passing by, and narrowly appraised her. As he viewed her loveliness, a sudden change of mood entered his heart, and feeling himself caught by her attraction, secretly he thought, I'll have that girl, whether I sink or swim. At once the devil entered into him, whose machinations then began to stir and teach him how to have his will of her. He knew quite well that neither force nor fee could suit his purpose in the least degree, for she had powerful friends, and what was more, her sovereignty of goodness closed the door on his desires. He could not hope to win her soul or body to an act of sin. So, after much reflection, he sent down for a known blackguard living in the town. As low in cunning tricks as he was bold, he came in secret. Then the tale was told, and having heard it, he was made to swear never to tell a soul. And should he dare so much as a whisper, he should lose his head. When he agreed to all that had been said of his accursed plan, the judge was glad, and he gave him precious gifts, the best he had. When they had framed their whole conspiracy from point to point to suit their lechery, the lechery of the judge, that was to be enacted on the sly, though you shall hear about it by and by. Home went the fellow, Claudius was his name, this treacherous drug that was so lost to shame was surnamed Appius. For the thing's no fable, but quite historical, and many able historians will vouch the gist of it. The treacherous judge, I tell you, set his wit to work and went about without delay to gratify his lust. There came a day when the false judge, authorities report, as was his custom, took his seat in court and gave his judgment upon various cases. All of a sudden, in this fellow races, crying, My lord, I beg with your permission for justice in my pitiful petition, touching my suit against Virginius. If he denies it, says it was not thus, then I shall prove it, and produce good witness to testify the truth of it and fitness. In absence, said the judge, of the accused, definitive award must be refused. Of the accused, definitive award must be refused. Summon him, state your case, and I will hear it gladly. You shall have justice, never fear it. Virginius came to learn the judge's will, and instantly they read the cursed bill. These were the terms of it, as you shall hear. To you, Lord Appius, it shall appear, on showing of your poor servant Claudius, how that a certain knight, Virginius, against the law, against all equity, and in express injunction lodged by me, retains a servant that is mine by right, one that was stolen from my home by night. When she was very young, I can support the charge on witness, may it please the court. My lord the judge, whatever he may say, the girl is not his daughter, and I pray my slave may be restored by your good will. This was the tenor of his cursed bill. Virginius stared in horror at the churl, but quickly, ere he could defend his girl and prove it on his honour as a knight, to bring a host of witness as he might, that all was false his enemy had stated, this cursed judge, who never so much as waited to hear the answer of Virginius, spoke out at once and gave his judgment thus: I rule this fellow is to have his slave immediately. The case is very grave. Your house shall not protect her. Fetch the girl. I say, the court awards her to the churl. And when Virginius, this excellent knight, had understood the judge's doom aright, and knew his daughter on compulsion must be handed over to the judge's lust, home he returned, and seated in his hall, he sent a servant, bidding him to call his daughter to him, and with ashen face, deathly and cold, gazed at her lowly grace. Fatherly pity entered him to the heart, and yet he did not falter in his part. Daughter, he said, Virginia, I must name the ways that lie before you, death or shame. One you must take, alas that I was born, O judgment undeserved, O my forlorn and innocent girl, to die upon the knife, O my dear daughter, ender of my life, that you fostered up with such delight, whose thought has never left me day or night. O daughter, you that are my last of woe, and last of any joy that I shall know. Be patient, O my gem of chastity, and take your death, for that is my decree, that it is love, not hate, would have you dead. My pitying hand must strike and take your head. Alas, that ever Appius saw your face, to give false judgment in a treacherous case. He told her then all that you have heard before, of what had happened. Need I say? I need say no more. Oh mercy, dearest father, said the maid. And as she spoke, she came to him and laid her arms about his neck, as oft she did, and the tears flooded under either lid. Thus she wept, O father dear, said she, am I to die? Is there no remedy? None, none, my dearest daughter, hope is dead. Oh, give me time, dear father, then she said. Let me lament my death a little space, for Geoffrey gave his daughter so much grace as to allow her time to sorrow in before he slew her. She had done no sin, God knows, but ran the first among them all to welcome him in solid festival. And on the word she fell into a swoon. But when her faintness passed, she rose as soon, and thus addressed her father, unafraid, Blessed be God that I shall die a maid. And having spoken thus, the child implored that he would smite her softly with his sword, and then once more she fainted and lay still. Her father, sorrowful in heart and will, smote off her head and took it by the hair, sought out the judge and gave it to him there, sitting in judgment in the open court. When he beheld it, Livy makes report, he rose and gave the order to his men to take the knight and hang him there and then. 1,000 men came surging from the city, thrusting their way into the court in pity and hope to save the knight. The news had flown. The treacherous iniquity was known. For there had been suspicion of the thing, bred from the day the churl had sought to bring his charge against the knight with the consent of Appius. They knew his lecherous bent, and so it was the people had arisen. They took that judge and cast him into prison, and there he slew himself. And Claudius, him that was instrument to Appius, they took and would have hanged upon a tree, for that Virginius in clemency begged for his exile. They could scarce refuse, else he would certainly have got his dues. The rest were hanged, the greater and the less, that had been party to this cursedness. Here one can see how sin is paid its wages. Beware, for no one knows how God engages, or when to smite the sinner, or how the worm of conscience will bring terror to the firm in wickedness, however secretly, though none should know it but God and he. Be he illiterate or a man of learning, how soon the blow will fall there's no discerning. I offer you this counsel, let it make you forsake your sins before your sins forsake you. Thank you, good people.